This week on the Brody File, he is one of the top Democrats in the country. We go one-on-one with Congressman Chris Van Hollen. He's talking 2014 midterms.
I do think the Democrats will pick up additional seats in the House.
Plus, he loves Jesus and he loves President Obama. Jennifer was on with one of the president's former administration officials. And on the road with Lila Rose, taking her pro-life agenda and Jesus-loving talk to the youth of America.
In all of this, there's something even deeper going on than what we can even see in front of us. There's a spiritual battle, an epic battle happening in our midst.
Here's our promise. If you like the Brody File show, you can keep it. Really, we promise. We're on the air across America. Let's go. And welcome everybody to another stirring, emotional, high-budget edition of the Brody File. All right, we begin this week with a man who believes mightily in the Democrat Party. His name, Chris Van Hollen. He's the ranking member of the powerful House Budget Committee, and he's also been heavily involved in trying to get more Democrats elected to the House of Representatives. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi has actually given him plenty of power and say on everything from budget negotiations to entitlement reform. He's extremely smart. He's a major player on the Hill and disputes the latest Congressional Budget Office report that says Obamacare will cost millions of people their jobs.
The head of CBO clarified a lot of the misrepresentations that have been made about the report. Number one, he said that right now, the Affordable Care Act actually reduces unemployment because it creates more demand in the labor market from employers, which means more people get hired. So right now, it increases employment activity and more people are employed. Second, when you're talking about down the road, there's a major distinction between a job not being available and somebody deciding on a voluntary basis to work fewer hours or not work because they feel they have more economic security, more time to spend with the family, more time to try and launch a new entrepreneurial endeavor. In fact, one of the real ironies here is a number of years ago, Senator McCain put forward a health care reform proposal that also had tax credits, the same kind of provision. And at that time, the Heritage Foundation and a whole lot of conservative organizations heralded this as an opportunity to end what they call job lock. The idea that the only place you can get affordable health care is if you have a job. What the Affordable Care Act does is says, okay, now you can get your health care through the exchange, and yes, we will provide some tax credits, as the John McCain proposal did, as the Mitt Romney proposal in Massachusetts did. Right. That means that you can have the opportunity now to get your health care without being in a particular job with a particular employer. More freedom of choice.
The war on poverty.
Yeah.
Republicans love to go around and call it LBJ's war on poverty, if you will, an abject failure. They say, look at all the people living in poverty today, and nothing has really changed much at all.
Well, let me start by saying that we have way too many Americans in poverty, right? We have close to 50 million Americans in poverty today. That's unacceptable as a country, and we should work together to find ways to help lift more people out of poverty. However, the figures that have been used by some of our Republican colleagues are just wrong, and again, wrong based on the nonpartisan analyses that have been done. So if you look at what conservative and liberal commentators and experts agree is the appropriate measure of poverty, we've actually reduced poverty in this country since 1967 by almost 40%. And if we did not have these important economic security programs in place, we would have almost twice as many Americans in poverty. In other words, 45 million Americans were not in poverty in the year 2012 because of economic security actions that the government has taken.
2014, the landscape. What do you make of it? You know, I know the conventional wisdom is that Republicans will keep the House and the Senate's up for grabs. Let's just talk about the House.
Sure.
You know, what is your take, and how do Democrats take control back of the House, and can it be doable in this climate of everybody trying to bash Obamacare?
Well, I do think that Democrats will pick up additional seats in the House. The question, of course, is whether you can get to the magic number of 17, which is what Democrats need to get the majority in the House. And look, there's a lot of time between now and November, politically speaking. A lot can change. If you looked at the polls just this last October, when Tea Party folks in the House shut down the government, if you'd had the election that day, Democrats might have taken back the House. So there are lots of things that can still happen, and I believe that the main issues that Democrats are focused on are not just Democratic issues. They appeal to independents, centrist voters, and a lot of Republicans. Investing in our national infrastructure used to be a bipartisan value, right? We need to modernize our bridges, our roads, broadband to compete. Meets an unmet need, puts a lot of people to work. We believe we should raise the minimum wage. If you really believe in an anti-poverty agenda, you would agree that we shouldn't have a situation where you can work full-time, 40 hours a week in this country, all year round, and still be below the federal poverty level with a couple kids, right? We don't think that should be the case. And if you raise the minimum wage, millions of people will get a raise, lower income people will get a raise. They're the people who are first to then go spend that money, right? Because they don't have a lot to put aside. They go spend it in the economy with local merchants, small businesses, pay the bills. That actually helps the entire economy. It helps generate more consumer demand when they go out and spend those dollars.
What's the talk in the caucus, if you will, about distancing themselves from this president, or are they going to just full on embrace this president?
Well, I think the State of the Union address the president gave here laid out an agenda that appeals to Democrats, but as I said, also appeals to voters across the political spectrum, ending a lot of those tax breaks that currently provide incentives for companies to move jobs overseas. Let's get rid of those tax breaks. Let's invest more here at home. So what I'm saying is the agenda the president laid out is one that I think will have broad appeal, and members of Congress, Democrats running for re-election, will support major pieces of that agenda. Whether or not the president campaigns in person in every district of the country, is something both the president will decide whether he has time to do it, and whether or not members make that request. But look, the president is, he's a very smart guy. He understands politics. Obviously, he's been elected president twice, so he's going to defer in these cases to members of Congress as to when he can help and how he can help.
That is Chris Van Hollen here on the Brody File. All right, when we roll on, Jenny in the B Block has an interview with a Jesus-loving former Obama administration official. And later, she's a pro-life rock star. Not Axl Rose, meet Lila Rose. Back in a moment. And welcome back to the Brody File, everybody. All right, it's the B Block, and you know what? That means, that's right, time for Jenny in the B Block. This week, she's talking about the role of Christians in politics with a former Obama administration official.
David, I'm joined by Michael Ware. He's a follower of Jesus Christ, founding partner of Values Partnerships, and formerly worked in President Obama's Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships, where he worked to connect the president with evangelicals. Michael, welcome to the Brody File.
It's great to be here.
You recently wrote an article published in the Atlantic magazine called The Changing Face of Christian Politics. How are Christian politics changing?
Well, I think what we're seeing is a disentanglement of Christian political engagement from an overtly partisan tone and nature to one that's focused on fidelity to Christ and asking first, what does the Bible say? Where do we think God is leading us on an issue? And then sort of answering the political questions flowing out of that.
You pose a great question, which is, can Christians still thrive in the public square while still holding to the tenets of their Christian faith?
We need to decide whether we're going to enter into another 30 years of culture war with two sides fighting the battle, or whether we're going to say, hey, we disagree on some fundamental issues. We need to hammer these out. These aren't sort of being taken off the table, but we're not going to cast out one another for our beliefs or who we are. We're going to be a part of a conversation about what's best for America, and for Christians, it's what does God want of us?
In your former job, you sat in the White House right at the intersection of faith and politics. Tell us how you think Christian politics will play a role in the midterm elections.
I think immigration, if Congress isn't able to act on immigration, I think it's going to be driving a lot of folks to the polls. And I think we're seeing, I've seen latest poll numbers that Christian support for immigration reform is the highest it's ever been. And when you have Speaker Boehner and Eric Cantor and the President all talking about the need to accomplish reform, if Congress isn't able to act there, I think there are going to be significant costs.
We know that an increasing number of millennials are either religiously unaffiliated or they just, religion just kind of leaves a bad taste in their mouth. How important is tone in terms of witnessing to that generation of Americans?
You know, people get nervous when you talk about changing your tone for millennials. Millennials need hard truths too. And if they sense that you're sort of leaving stuff out or not being forthright with them about what the faith teaches, of what's demanded of them as followers of Christ, that they're going to sniff that out too. Our faith can stand up to anything. And so we shouldn't be afraid of respecting other people and to entering the public square with a humility that comes from knowing that the world is in God's hands and that we're not perfect, but our Savior is, and those kinds of simple, eternal truths that should keep us grounded in a very tumultuous time that we're living in.
Amen. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Michael.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
It's great to see you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. David, back to you.
All right, Jenny, thanks a lot. Real interesting, Michael Ware. When we come back, the lunch angel saves the day for some elementary school kids. The story next. And welcome back, everybody, to the Brody File. Well, look, we hear all the time about the push to keep prayer out of our schools. Well, in Alabama, one lawmaker is actually trying to put prayer back in schools. That's right. Republican State Representative Steve Hurst is sponsoring a bill that would require Alabama schools to begin each day with prayer. Hurst said school prayers would be taken directly from the opening prayers of Congress, and he said students would have the opportunity to read through important prayers like the day war was declared in World War II and even the day after 9/11. So opponents of the bill argue it is unconstitutional, and we're going to pray for a good outcome. All right, here's another story out of the state of Alabama. Bless their hearts down there in the South. It has been a rough winter with several major snowstorms, especially in the South. So what do you think would happen if you were driving through, let's say, Birmingham, Alabama, in the middle of a snowstorm? I mean, would the government shut down like it does here in D.C.? I don't know. But what I can tell you is that this guy, Mark Meadows, the owner of a Chick-fil-A restaurant, passed out hundreds of sandwiches to motorists who had been stranded on the side of the road for hours. And he did it all for free. I mean, I think he even threw a side of waffle fries in with those chicken sandwiches. Anyhow, Meadows also opened up the Chick-fil-A dining area to anyone who needed a place to sleep if they couldn't make it home in the storm. Great stuff. Chick-fil-A, by the way, was founded by a Christian family, as many of you know. I'm sure they would be very proud of Meadows. In fact, one of the stranded motorists who was blessed with free food sent a thank you letter all the way to corporate headquarters. Great stuff. All right, now on to a story about an elementary school tutor who's being called the lunch angel, touched by an angel. Meet 52-year-old Kenny Thompson at Valley Oaks Elementary School in Houston, Texas. Nice picture, by the way. He found out that dozens of students at his school were eating cold sandwiches for lunch instead of the hot, healthy meals from the cafeteria. Well, that's because the students owed the school money. They all had negative balances on their lunch accounts, and so Thompson decided to pay off the outstanding balance for all 60 students. The price tag, ding, 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 $465. Thompson said that was the best money he ever spent. He even told Today.com, quote, "It was the best gift I ever gave myself." And then he went on to say, "I went into my car and screamed," end of quote. Hey, by the way, that's what we do after every Brody File show is over, just so you know. All right, when we come back, she is the rose blossoming amidst the thorns of the abortion industry. One-on-one with Lila Rose next. And we're back here on the big show. All right, do you remember the cartoon Tom and Jerry? Not Ben and Jerry, by the way, Tom and Jerry. Tom was always foiled by Jerry the Mouse. Remember that? How about Wile E. Coyote? I mean, he always had problems against the Roadrunner. Well, Lila Rose is to Planned Parenthood what Jerry was to Tom and Roadrunner was to Wile E. Coyote. That's like an SAT question. Anyhow, she is their nemesis. That's the bottom line. She is a thorn in their side, and she's only 25 years old. But since she was a teenager, Lila Rose has been making her mark on the pro-life movement. Her efforts have advanced the pro-life cause and at the same time have scared the dickens out of Planned Parenthood, America's largest abortion provider. Here she is, up close. Lila Rose may not look like a brawler, but that doesn't stop her from taking the fight to the abortion industry.
To pay for drugs that are killing human life, indirectly, directly, however you want to say it, that are going to kill human life.
She doesn't back down.
If I could insist, as long as they are legal in our nation, abortions would be done in the public square.
In her battle to save the culture of life.
We're objectifying, we're dehumanizing human beings, and that is never right, and we have to stand up against that and expose it.
And expose it she has. By using hidden cameras, her group, Live Action, investigated Planned Parenthood clinics. In one incident, Rose posed as a 13-year-old, saying that she was having sexual relations with a 31-year-old. That's considered child abuse and should be reported to local authorities. Live Action's cameras captured a worker saying this instead.
I didn't hear the age. I don't want to know the age.
Her investigations have led to firings, political investigations, and media attention. She's been named one of the most influential women in Washington under 35. Critics, however, claim the undercover videos are edited in a misleading way, although Live Action provides all original footage to media outlets.
You know those liberal groups, they can't stand you. You know that. You realize that, right?
I love them all.
As one of 8 homeschooled children, Lila found her calling at a young age.
I came across a book at about 9 years old in my parents' house, bottom shelf, called A Handbook on Abortion. It looked like a history book of some sort. Was interested, opened it up, it fell to the center. And what I'm looking at is the image of a child. In the first trimester, maybe 10 weeks old, newly forming arms and legs, a newly forming little face, who had been the victim of a first trimester suction abortion.
That image put her on a pro-life mission. She started Live Action in high school and then took her cause to UCLA.
Many people in our country, especially on our college campuses, don't know the huge tragedy that's taking place.
Her activism increased and the undercover investigations began. Now, Rose's organization employs 10 full-time staff members, and they're growing. Lila Rose and her Live Action team are known for those undercover videos exposing Planned Parenthood. But her real heart is to change the hearts and minds of young people. And so that's why she comes to places like this, in Minneapolis, in the suburbs, in a snowstorm, all to affect the next generation.
I challenge them, look, your life is a gift, your life has a purpose. There's no greater cause than the cause for life in our country.
Inside these events, she sees this, hundreds of young, dedicated teenagers.
There's definitely passion. Like everyone I talk to, everyone who supports the cause is just super into it. There's no one that's just like mediocre about it. Everyone's just super passionate and wants it to change.
And statistics back that up. One recent study shows 51% of 18 to 29-year-olds believe abortion should either be totally illegal or only available with some exceptions.
The youth are the most pro-life generation that we have.
Sharon Wilson runs a youth program in the Minneapolis area. She says technological advances like 3D ultrasounds that can even show the babies' faces make a big difference for them.
There's a whole biological aspect of it that these kids get, that the culture of death can't push on to them because they know better. It will be this generation that will change the laws and change the hearts specifically on the areas of abortion. It's their generation that has been lost.
A key market for us as young people, we need to reach my generation and future generations.
It's why she works to teach them the importance of life.
God created us with a purpose. Before he formed us in the womb, he had a plan for us.
And Rose acknowledges that the fight she's fighting is both seen and unseen.
In all of this, there's something even deeper going on than what we can even see in front of us. There's a spiritual battle, an epic battle happening in our midst. If we become activists and go out there, even if it's the best cause, even if we're fighting for justice and righteousness and good things, but it's not being completely infused and prayer is infusing it with the Spirit of God, with the love of God, then we are nothing.
Lila Rose just wants to make her life count for something and knows all of this begins and ends with Jesus, who she calls her first friend.
Life is short, and my life could be very short. We don't know how long our lives will be. Life is, but a breath. Tomorrow we may not have it. So use today for love, for loving God, and for sharing His love and His salvific plan, His plan and purpose for each person, sharing that with everybody that we meet.
That is Lila Rose here on the Brody File. Great stuff. All right, when we come back, President Obama and Satan? Huh? Oi gavolt. Back in a moment. And welcome back to the Brody File. Look, I don't know how often you might use Obama and Satan in the same sentence. Don't answer that. But for Hollywood producers, that's probably happened more times than they would like, and it has stirred up quite a bit of controversy again. So here it is, folks, our Oy vey moment of the week. Well, producers for the upcoming movie Son of God have deleted all scenes featuring Satan because, get this, the actor, there it is, he looks too much like President Obama. See for yourselves. You may remember this actor on the left who played Satan in the hit TV miniseries The Bible. Well, when the miniseries aired last year on the History Channel, people immediately noticed his resemblance to the president, and the producers came under fire for it. Well, now that miniseries is being reworked into a 2-hour movie. It's called Son of God, and here's a clip from the movie.
Your sins are forgiven, my son. I thought only God could do that. Which is easier, to say his sins are forgiven, or say get up and walk?
I've had reports of a young prophet of Nazareth. It's rumored he works miracles. They all do.
Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God.
Pray to him, and he will listen.
All right, so no devil in the movie. Producers are saying, after all, this movie is really about Jesus, the Son of God, and not about Satan. Folks, read Genesis. I've got 2 words for you. Spiritual warfare, hello? By the way, the movie hits theaters nationwide February 28th. That does it for this week. Until next time, everybody, God bless. Have a great week.